Hi everyone, I'm Shanti, the artist behind Shanti Fine Arts. Recently, online somebody asked me how to paint wrinkles with oil pastels, and I was trying very hard to explain in words how to paint wrinkles with oil pastels, and it just wasn't working out. It was like very difficult to express in words what you would very easily demonstrate. So I thought I'll make a video on that. I hope this would be a very beneficial portrait tutorial. So let's.
First thing I did in this particular painting is I took a very dark brown color, and I'm using my Holbein oil pastels, which is linked below with all the other materials that I've used in the video description area, like I always do. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a very dark brown color from the Holbeins, and I am putting in the lines, the wrinkle lines of and the other facial feature lines first. Typically I would never ever do such strong lines, but here in this face, since there are so many wrinkles, I wanted to retain these lines. So I went ahead and painted those lines first. Now then, next thing that I need to do is the mid-tone. So I went for one shade lighter color of oil pastels and went in the in between areas with that light pastels. And at this point I've done no blending, so it's all looking very granulated and distorted, but once I put in enough amount of pigment, I will start in blending with my color shapers, or rather clay shaper tools. These are used by people for clay modeling, but I find them extremely easy to blend with, so any sort of blending tools would work, but this is my recent favorite amongst blending tools. You can also use odorless mirror spirits for blending, or you can use any other blending tools like stumps or cloth or anything. Anyways, so the point is that once I'm putting in the pigments enough, then I am coming back with those blending tools, clay shapers in my case, and I am pushing those pigments into the weave of the paper. So you want to push in that pretty decently, so that enough pigment is there on the paper before you go on to the next layer. So at this point you can see that I am coming back with a lighter color, which is the highlight color, and wherever I see the highlights I'm adding those lines. And these are not very clean lines, but it does not matter at this point because I will adjust and redefine these areas a lot of time. But the main idea of painting wrinkles is to first put in the different darkest lines first, and then in between the darker lines come back with the mid-tone colors. And once you have blended the mid-tone colors well, try to retain the dark lines, because these lines are the ones that will show the wrinkles, and then add a little bit of highlights here and there. That's the whole idea behind this painting, and I'm going pretty slow on this painting. I have not made it very fast. I'm going pretty slow, like a double speed of my painting or something like that, to make sure that you see everything that I am doing in this painting and understand the whole process, because that is the whole point of the tutorial. My goal was not to make a great piece of portrait, but to show you how to paint wrinkles with oil pastels, because I know that painting this much of details with oil pastels can be a challenge, but I do not want people to discount oil pastels just because painting details seem to be a challenge. There are tricks and techniques that you need to use in order to get over those challenging parts of using oil pastels. So there you can see, once I put in enough pigments, I am going back with my color shaper tools and blending in my mid-tone colors. I'm trying to retain the lines that I initially put, the wrinkle lines, the darkest lines. Those I am not trying to blend in completely. Those I'm trying to retain at least a little bit, so that they can symbolize, or they can show the wrinkles properly. Now I'm using a lot of purple in this painting because wherever I see shadows, I try to use a good combination of purple and brown and blues, and not just browns and blues like people generally do. Artists generally use a lot of browns and blues, but I tend to see a lot of purple in shadow areas, and what I see is what I paint, so I tend to do a lot of shadows in purple. That's the bottom line. So this is a part where I'm adding the highlights, so be very careful to go along with your reference photo and put the highlights only where it is required. Do not overuse it, because highlights are kind of take the focus of attention of the viewer. So if you add too much of highlights, the entire face would look very streaky, and the whole point of highlights or drawing the focus will not work out. I'm cleaning up some of the edges, some of the shadows, and keeping on adding more pigments and more layers. The best part of oil pastels is that you can do a lot of layering, which is very important in a painting like this. You need to do a lot of layers, and you will see that even the highlights, I am dabbing it down, blending quite a bit of it, because I do not want them to stand out like a sore thumb. I want them to look like they are a part of the painting. Now I'm doing the eyebrows first. Firstly, I'm adding the blues and browns, and you can see that the eyebrows are pretty dark, but in my reference photo this old lady had very thin down eyebrows, not so much of color, so I went back with a lighter brown tone, kind of like a burnt sienna mixed with flesh tone kind of color. I don't know what it is called, but anyways, I went back with that and softened the color, softened the darkness of the eyebrows a little bit, made it a little bit lighter for that matter. Again, I'm doing using a combination of purples and browns for the shadow areas. I'm staying very true, very as close to my reference photo as possible, and that's why I'm even using some amount of magenta color here and there, because the capillaries are around the nose, the cheeks, some areas of the eyes, because of the blood capillaries, blood vessels that are underneath the skin, it is a little bit redder than the rest of the areas, so that's what I'm trying to go for. You can see that I'm adding some lines for the wrinkles, but I'm dabbing them down, smoothing them down a little bit. So the lines are required to show the wrinkles, but not very harshly. Although in this painting you will see that I have left some amount of harsh lines. I have not dabbed all of them just like I would generally do, just to show that that is something that works too if you are going for an impressionistic, more like an impasto look. But if you want a more smoothed out look, you need to smooth it out, dab it down. Even the lines, kind of smear it down so that it still looks like lines but doesn't stick out very badly. I'm adding some highlights around the eyes. At this point they're like really bright, really light, but once I go over these areas with my blending tool, it will kind of become subtle and blend out and become a part of the painting and not stick out like a sore thumb, for lack of a better sentence. So once the eyes were done, I came onto the nose, and you can see that I've used a very unusual color here. I've used a pink in the nose because that's something I saw in the reference photo, and like I say, I paint what I see, so I saw pink, I painted pink. I'm putting in some more of the wrinkle lines. Over here I'm putting in the wrinkle lines with the darker brown color, some shadows with my purple, and once I've done that, I'm going to blend the shadow areas. And although I will also blend the wrinkle areas, but I'm trying to retain some of the lines, the darker lines, because once again I'm reiterating many times and saying the same things over and over, I know, but it's probably for best if I kind of keep saying that throughout the entire video, so that you understand the importance of retaining some of the lines and blending in some of the lines. So it has to be a combination. adding in some of the highlights. Once I add the highlights, I'll dab some of it down with the blending stump, or in this case I'm using a clay shaping tool. But first I need to have enough pigment on the right areas for the highlights. And in this painting I use the Holbein pastels because they have they are square, or rather rectangular pieces, and thus getting the edges, the nice details, is a tiny bit easier than other oil pastels. But if you don't have Holbein, and if you don't have the advantage of the rectangular edge, then you can kind of scrape out a little bit. That is one technique that works. You can refer to my oil pastel fine detail technique video. There I show how to get fine details very easily with oil pastels. You can use a little bit of oil based pencils like polychromos here and there to make your job a little bit easier, although I do not recommend using oil pencils too much, because that kind of makes it more mixed media than oil pastel. But if you are going for a mixed media, then please go ahead and make your life easier. No big deal. So going on the rest of the face, now I'm going a little bit faster because I'm just keeping on repeating the same things over and over in the rest of the face. And once I do the face, I'm not even going into great big details on the rest of the features. In this particular portrait, I didn't even do a background, which I generally start off with the background, but I just wanted to show that if you draw a really nice portrait, it doesn't even need a background. This face was so calm, so serene. This lady's smile was so beautiful. Her wrinkles were so pretty that I just wanted a viewer to focus on the beauty of her face and not worry about background and hair and clothes and all those unimportant things in a portrait. So there you can see I'm cleaning up the edges around her face, because that is important. You have to clean up a little bit around the face so that the face gets a little bit of prominence. She was wearing a white dress, gave like a gray shadow, and she had lots of gray hair, so I put in a lot of brown, blue and black first, and then I blended them all together with a gray color, and then I came back with some lighter gray and white highlights for her gray hair. But then this is not a hair tutorial, so I'm not going to go over in great lengths on how I did the hair. You can see it, what I did and what I did not. And if you want a hair tutorial, you can let me know in the comments. I will be happy to do that. So that is pretty much end of this painting. If you liked, give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments, please share with me. That is most appreciated. Questions too are most welcome. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing, because I am posting new tutorials every single week, in fact twice a week. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you once again.